Hi, welcome back again. Today we're going to talk about the cell phone tower task, item number 3, and we're going to look at the importance and the role of literacy in math. Well, let's look at how we introduce this question. I started with, something that most people can relate to, drop cell service. For example, when we drive through a tunnel or go perhaps up into the hills, it tends to get spotty, or even in an elevator, we lose connection. I decided to bring it a little bit closer to home for these students, and I found a region in Antioch which typically drops calls, loses texts, doesn't have, bars for Verizon customers. And so we talked about it and basically said, well, okay, if I was a Verizon customer living in that area, I would either be complaining all the time or I would just make it easier on myself and switch to AT&T or T-Mobile or, some other service. Of course, company wouldn't want you to do that. They'd want you to stay. So what could they do? Well, at this point, we kind of know that to fix this issue, you probably have to put in a new cell tower. And that's exactly what we had them do to fix issues in southern Georgia. Basically, their question told them that this region of southern Georgia was having really spotty service and the customers were getting upset. The company had to figure out where should they put only one tower to restore area to this particular region. So for their first question, they were told to choose a location that would be best for the cell tower just by looking at the map. They had to explain their thought process, identify why they thought it would be a good location, and determine what additional information would help them make a better decision. So this is the first part of literacy. They're looking at explaining thought process. I didn't tell them they had to be right or wrong, just tell me your reasoning. What are you thinking about? I'm asking them to analyze the situation and determine what else do they need? What are they missing? And that is actually a very good problem-solving strategy. However, just from this one question alone, I realized that they were missing another type of literacy, the ability to read and interpret a map. A lot of my students didn't understand the scaling. They didn't know why I circled the cities. Apparently, they didn't realize that the Albany, Valdosta, Waycross were the same cities we've been mentioning in previous parts in this writing here when they actually described the project. They also had difficulty understanding which ones were freeways, what the different symbols meant, all these intersecting lines. They felt it was very busy and it was confusing them. They weren't able to simplify it to just be this triangle that was in front of them. Well, on the next page, I gave them a new set of instructions. I told them to construct the 4 centers in the 4 triangles that were on the next page. And I told them that triangle represented Albany, Valdosta, Waycross. And in fact, I even labeled the triangles as such. And I said, once you make these constructions, and again, I've bolded construct, because by now they know construct is a key vocabulary term, meaning use a compass and straight edge. They said, after you made your constructions, use patty paper, another tool they know about, to trace the triangles and the point of concurrency, again, more accurate math vocabulary, onto the map that I gave them below. And they told them to label the points of concurrency as C, I, C, C, and O. So from there, I've given them a lot of cues. I've given them bolded terminology. I've given them a better description of, what they actually need to accomplish. And again, at this point, it's now on them to interpret what they're reading, figure out how do I actually accomplish this. And finally, I looked at saying, well, after you've made your constructions, come back and figure out where should you actually put the cell tower. But this time I told them you must defend your choice using mathematical vocabulary, properties of triangle centers, which of course is also called point of concurrency, and bring in the situation's context. Bring in that you have to read this map. Bring in that you have to use cell phone towers. Basically, I want them to be able to describe to me in full, complete sentences. I want them to communicate everything to me that is going through their mind in a way that makes sense logically. We're looking for this organization. Because again, literacy is multifaceted. It's both reading comprehension, it's saying, okay, I have this terminology, let's connect it between what I'm reading and what I actually have to construct. It's saying, I see these key terms, let me go back to my notes and figure out where they are. And it's also looking at a map and saying, oh, okay, I know how to read this. I know what I have to do. Unfortunately, a lot of students, when they saw the text, they just glazed over and skipped it. So one thing we're working on is emphasizing that if you break these things down into chunks, if you think about what does it mean, if you annotate what you're looking at, again, English class strategies, it'll make them better math students. What I found overall in the past year is that my students have the most trouble because they don't read instructions. They skip it or they don't understand it and they don't ask questions. And that's where we're trying to build up their ability to practice literacy strategies.